Hey, hi everybody. I'm Candid Frank. He's David Morisuti. He's Aaron William Freeland. Oh man, I got the CFL on my brain. Got the invitation to go to the Grey Cup.
Yeah,
Filled
it's
out the
fantastic.
form. Yeah, so looking forward to that in Winnipeg, Portage in Maine. I'll be standing at that street corner, and I'll be doing a selfie because I want people to know that's where. Is that? Yeah, that's right. I thought for a minute there it was backwards like this. Here, let me show you. That's for
Ah,
that's
interesting.
that's for selfie mode, and that's for regular mode. Yeah, so I'll be going there. It's gonna be a lot of fun. David and I are gonna go. We're figuring out the plans right now, the flights and all that kind of stuff, and it's gonna be a lot of fun going. It's gonna be very interesting. And at this point in this juncture, it doesn't look like the Argos are the team that are going to be there. The odds seem a lot more likely that it'll be Hamilton or Montreal, only because of where the standings sit today. But if one thinks of the rest of the season having an impact on that thought, the Argos still have time to be a factor and get to the Grey Cup. As always happens with the Canadian Football League, the East Division especially, they're not. You don't have to finish with a really good record, because the Argos have finished with a 16-2 record, and it didn't get them past the East Final. So there are no guarantees. Your record doesn't guarantee anything, but the way you're playing can matter. So we'll talk about the CFL in a moment. I just wanted to get to that, and let's talk about basketball. And we've talked a little bit about Kawhi Leonard, and it's an interesting situation that there's actually talk about him maybe making a comeback to the Raptors.
Well, the NBA has just started their investigations into whether the LA Clippers circumvented the salary cap by setting up lucrative no-show endorsement deals. Apparently, according to some reports that are out there, Dennis Robertson, that's Leonard's Kawhi's uncle and representative, sought similar impermissible benefits back in 2019. He expected, there were a couple things that really stood out. One, Robertson asked for ownership stakes in outside companies, not just the Leafs, who apparently Robertson thought was a separate entity from the Raptors and not owned by the same company, but also different companies that Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment has dealings with. The Raptors were also told they needed to match at least $10 million a year in extra sponsorship income. And now teams are allowed to introduce players to team sponsors, but teams cannot negotiate deals, and MLSE was well aware of that fact. It didn't end there, though. As one source put it, when told about all the corporate sponsors in Toronto who'd be happy to have Leonard as a pitchman, Kawhi Leonard's camp said, "We don't actually want to do anything." The Raptors said, "Well, any sponsor is going to want to shoot ads with you or arrange appearances." And Robertson was like, "Yeah, no, he just wants to get paid. He doesn't want to actually have to show up and do anything." So this is similar to the deal that they had with Aspiration for the $28 million deal. All of the stuff that's being asked for was strictly not permitted under any circumstances, but apparently the Clippers went ahead and did it. I'm not sure what this will result in for them. I'm not sure what the Raptors and MLSE's involvement is in this, and if they kowtowed or bowed down to any of his requests. But whatever repercussions come out of it, it's going to be interesting.
There was a lot of bending over by the Raptors, especially management, game management. It was a term invented by him, like here in Toronto.
I happen to know a couple people that were aware of that particular situation. The injury itself is actually legitimate.
Right.
So it was set up in conjunction with team doctors. And as much as we dislike the idea of load management and maintenance days, that part of it is actually legitimate.
Well, that doesn't matter. That's not what we're talking about two different things here. We're talking about hiding money.
Yeah.
And we're talking about just what it says, load management. They're admitting that this guy can't play every day. That's not the same. That's when you sign a contract, and the team makes the determination how they use you. You don't get money taken off because you're up in the press box, because there's a lot of players who don't play well without intention. You don't want to create a situation where they cannot play well and get paid more. No, that isn't what it's about. What it's about is they contravened the cap. It looks like they were using a way to pay him money without putting it on the cap. If you remember, Aaron, when the Leafs were trying to get Mr. Tampa Bay Stamkos, right? And they were talking to Stamkos, and they were starting to talk about a deal. Canadian Tire was saying, well, we can augment your salary by giving you a lot of advertising dollars to advertise for us in Canadian Tire, and we'll guarantee you that income. The NHL said, that's a hard no. Mind you, when you think about it, that's an advantage based on the community and what the community has to offer. If the community offers less taxes, you can accept that. So why can't you accept the benefits of being in a larger community?
Well, and the NHL did sort of lighten their rules about that sort of thing, mainly because they were allowing players like Nathan McKinnon and Sidney Crosby to appear in ads for Tim Hortons. Morgan Riley has a sponsorship deal with Pizzaville. And again, it's only his face and likeness. They're not allowed to use the Maple Leafs jersey, obviously, but they can still use him as a pitchman. I think the other thing that they're doing is they're permitting them to do advertising with league sponsors, right?
Absolutely.
Because Canadian Tire is a league sponsor, so Tim Hortons, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing as you can put something on your jersey that the league approves of, right? So the league does approve of advertising, but they don't want to appear to be giving any team an advantage under advertising. Now, taxes, that's a different story. And faking injuries so that you can use a player in the cap space that they create by being injured, you can do that. That's okay. So it depends how you want to cheat. There's certain ways you can cheat, and there's certain ways you can't cheat. And now, because the jig is up, right? When it comes to cap space and the playoffs and such, because it's been clearly established that teams have used it to win championships, not just to cheat and be better, but to actually be doing it. And coincidentally-ish, on the side-ish, part of the situation-ish, there's this championship they win. And they're doing it with a cap much higher than anybody else that's playing in the playoffs. Not fair, but fair until it's not. So it's not fair until it is. It's fair until it's not. It depends which way the National Hockey League wants to look at stuff. And we know that, morally speaking, the National Hockey League isn't in the business of worrying about morality. They're worried about business and how to make more money. That's the bottom line. So this is, and with the NBA, they'll try to see if there was anything done here that contravened the intentions of the cap. And when I say the intentions of the cap, that's what I mean, the intentions of the cap, because it's not just about whether you're cap compliant. Do you look like you're cap compliant? Why don't you look like you're cap compliant? So that's what the don't look like cap compliant that happened in the National Hockey League that now has given us this new idea about how you deal with caps in the playoffs.
Now, the other thing that we're looking at here as well is the NBA has retained the law firm of Vaughtal, Lipton, Rosen, and Katz. That's the same organization, the same law firm that led the investigation into Donald Sterling in 2014, which led to him being stripped of the team, as well as Suns owner Robert Sarver back in 2022. So they're definitely taking this seriously. And I'm going to be very curious to see how all of this goes in the coming months. So I'm going to be definitely keeping an eye on this.
Yeah, and their owner is a very vociferous guy, very vocal. Well, apparently somebody's left the house because the dogs have decided they're going to go nuts. So I apologize for the background noise. Anyway, let's go to the Jays. And Jays shortstop Bichette is on a 10-day extended IL. Oh,
Yeah.
they need that.
Yeah,
But
they
they got a lot of hitters on. Like, they're not. It's not that he's not necessary, but they can gloss it over a little bit for a short while.
Oh, most definitely. He's on the list retroactive to Sunday, just because that's when he did originally hurt himself. But at the end of the day, this is a move that's designed to help him out more than anything else. Give him a little bit of a rest, let him get healthy. It doesn't seem to have been too much of an issue because, as we'll find out in a little bit, it's not all doom and gloom because he's on the IL for sure.
Yeah, and I think a bigger concern for them is their ace has a little hole in his game, and they're hoping that never mind. They'll fix that problem. They'll need to fix that problem. Let's talk about the Astros.
So unfortunately, Luis Garcia was actually forced to leave. He ended up on the 15-day injured list on Wednesday, one day after he left his start early. He returned to the surgery rotation just last week for the first time since undergoing Tommy John surgery back in 2023. Like I mentioned before, he was pulled in the second inning. He appeared to experience discomfort after throwing an 88-mile-per-hour pitch to Ernie Clement. Garcia then called for trainers who came out of the Astros dugout to meet him on the mound and left the game almost immediately after that. Now, before that actually happened, Garcia's velocity was down throughout his start prior to his exit. With 2 outs in the second inning, he threw 27 pitches against the Jays, 14 of them for strikes. He didn't allow a hit or a run, but his velocity was off 5 miles per hour on average from where it normally was. Yeah.
Well, hopefully he'll have a swift recovery. And unfortunately, you don't know what happens when you come back from Tommy John. You don't know, it's the kind of injury that you do come back, but then you keep, like what we're having here, what's going on here is he's very careful about his arm and how it's reacting to actually pitching again. And there's concerns. There was concerns with his velocity, and he was concerned because he was uncomfortable. And, the Astros have to consider his health long-term, and that's the way it goes.
Now, this is all during the same game where Toronto was actually trailing at 1.31 heading into the bottom of the ninth against closer Brian Abreu. The Jays loaded the bases with 2 walks and a single before IKF lined a game-tying hit to left field. Abreu sent it to extra innings by striking out George Springer and getting Straw to fly out. But at the end of the day, Heineman collected the first game-winning RBI of his career. Springer hit a 450-foot home run.
The longest home run by a Blue Jay this year.
Yep, and the longest of his one of the longest in his career. Barrios is up next. He's scheduled to start for the Jays today.
Oh, he needs to do something, man. He's got to stop. He's got to stop pitching in a way that isn't helpful. Come on, he's got to. And now, as I said, Aaron, a long time ago, as I mentioned to you, there's going to be an adjustment at pitchers. That they have a situation where they need to figure out a way to pad the relievers. The relievers need to get their rest, and they need to manage their games, and they need to be more successful when they're out there. And the best way for that to happen is if the starters go deep. They have to go deep to keep those relievers fresh, or they're just going to have to take a starter or two, and they've got a couple that are candidates for long stretches. So we'll see how that pans out. And Barrios is one of them, I think. He's one of the guys that they can have him come in a game where the starting pitcher really has a bad start and they need to take him out. And they can turn it into, if he can, give them six good innings, there you go. That's what we're talking about here. That's what the Jays need. The Jays need to stop when teams are doing well and keep them off the scoreboard for as long or as little as they can.
For sure. And the other issue that I think the Jays really have is they have no middle relievers. There's no guys that can go, more than one inning amongst their closers, which means they're going through their pitches far faster than they need to.
They can go, but they're allowing 10 runs. not good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not the point, right? That's not what you're trying to do. Let's go over to soccer, and Canada had a great 3 games that they played. They were in Europe, playing the Europeans. Tough. While the teams that they played were lower in the world rankings than them, they're still very competitive. Europe is very serious, and they went in there to play a few teams, and they looked really good, Aaron.
They genuinely did. I know that Derek Cornelius, who was with the Vancouver Whitecaps, he had a fantastic free kick from long range to secure a win yesterday over Wales in Swansea. Cornelius said he'd been working on it during the week and felt confident about it. They beat Romania 3-0 in Bucharest. This is also the first time Canada had beaten 3 UEFA opponents in a row, having defeated Ukraine 4-2 in a home friendly back in June. So these past 10 days and how they've used them and maximized them has probably been the best 10 days that they've had together, according to head coach Jesse Marsh. He said he loves the team. I really love working with them. They're so committed to everything we're doing. And one of the things that becomes more palpable is the confidence and belief that they have in each other. This is really important as we're moving towards the World Cup next year. Getting in the wins when we can during a friendly is the most important thing. And again, this is the first time ever that the Canadian men's national team has beaten their last 3 European opponents back to back to back, which is something I definitely feel good about.
And something new, something not, Canada not well known for is set pieces. They prove that they can do that. And you have to do that in the big tournaments. Set pieces are what separates winning from losing, because the game gets very tight. And anytime you get an opportunity to score, you cannot waste the opportunity. And we saw a lot of timber being hit in these 2 games that they just played. And we also saw a lot of great playmaking. And, Canadians aren't known for that because, quite frankly, up until recently, they haven't been known for scoring. So you're not going to score pretty goals when you're not scoring. So the best way to get pretty goals is to score. And they've done that. And the heel pass was an amazing one to see from a Canadian player. It was awesome.
It's those little things that they're finally picking up on and making strides with that makes it all so much more fun to watch.
Absolutely. Let's talk about another sport that Canada is doing well in, and it's tennis. The Davis Cup. Let's talk about that.
So there was a tie, a World Cup tie between Canada and Israel that is going to be played in a closed venue without fans this weekend due to safety concerns. The organization said in a release that the decision was made in consultation with the International Tennis Federation due to escalating safety concerns flagged by local authorities and national security agencies. It comes after more than 400 Canadian athletes and academics, including Mo Ahmed, urged Tennis Canada to cancel the tie over Israel's actions in Gaza and the West Bank. Tennis Canada CEO Gavin Ziv called the outcome very disappointing, but said the safety of athletes, fans, and staff takes priority. At the heart of this difficult decision is the responsibility to protect people while ensuring that this Davis Cup tie can still take place. They're actually giving refunds to fans who purchase tickets within the next 30 days. They're refunding approximately 1,500 tickets per day. It's going to have a huge financial impact if they can't have fans there. But at the same time, I can understand the decision to try to keep Israeli athletes safe based on the actions that their government is currently taking. So I can understand and respect that, but at the same time, it's causing a problem for Tennis Canada.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Felix Auger-Aliassime.
So he's making his way up the standings now. As of the National Bank Open last month, he was actually back in 22nd place. He's now climbed to 13 on the world rankings after his men's singles semifinal run at the U.S. Open. He reached a career high number 6 in 2022, but currently jumped 14 spots and remains the highest ranked Canadian man. This is the first time he's advanced to the semis since the 2021 U.S. Open. He upset 3rd seed Alexander Zverev, 15th seed Andrei Rublev, and 8th seed Alex de Minaur before falling to world number 1, now world number 2, Yannick Sinner in 4 sets.
Absolutely. Wow. Did you hear this one about Kaprizov and the contract he turned down?
No, what have you heard about this one? I mean, I've heard some rich stories, but
go Google Kaprizov.
yeah,
He turned down a $16 million a year contract, is what's out there. Would have made him the highest paid National Hockey League player. The Wild offered him apparently that contract, $16 million a year over an 8-year period. They can still do the 8 years. So let me see if I can find it here. I don't want to do the math.
So that's $128 million.
There you go.
Apparently, yeah.
He turned it down.
You know, honestly, that's his prerogative. I don't know if he feels that his time in Minnesota is done.
Well, that's what it says to me. I mean, it's not about money, right? I mean, if it was, how can it be about money when they're offering $16 million a year, when they're offering him, $3-4 million more than McDavid? Now, I know the next check that McDavid's going to get is going to be for an interesting sum. There are some in the Leaf camp that are concerned about how much Matthews is going to be worth. Cross that bridge when we get to it. But Buddy turning down a $16 million 8-year contract. Remember, next year he won't be able to sign an 8-year contract. He can only sign a 7-year contract, right? So
yeah, he's put himself in an interesting position here.
That means, to me, it tells me he doesn't want to be there. That's what it tells me. As it's you want to keep somebody somewhere, or you want to not. That's up to you. That is scary. That is scary.
It is possible that he turned it down because he might be looking for less, wink, wink, in an effort to help the team build around him. I think that's unlikely, personally speaking. But at the same time, it's a possibility.
I think leaving's what happening. Think leaving's what happening. And I bet you wherever he goes, he's not going to sign for $16 million. It'll be less. Because of what you just said, because he wants to go to a situation that's better than the one he has with the Wild.
Look, there's no point in making. I was going to say, there's no point in making all the money in the world if there's no chance of you actually winning anything.
Or you don't like where you are. Like,
well, there's that.
Russians like being in New York. They like being in big cities.
No, that's fair.
They're not really. You look at the best Russians are in pretty big cities. You've got one in Pittsburgh. In New York, always has a few, right? They love Russians there. Russians love New York. Toronto has, not anymore. Well, they have one, right? I think they have. Oh, doesn't matter anyway. Montreal has a pretty good one there.
That's true.
I just think Russians are more internationally wired. They're not small town. They're not small town folks. I don't care what anybody is. They love the big city. Their culture is closer to being in a big city than it is in a small town. But anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about the Sens and Steve Staios.
So, they decided, the Sens, this year, that they were going to run it back with the same crew. They asked Steve Staios about why they were bringing him back. And Staios says, well, look, there's great energy and optimism here. And I think I draw optimism from gauging the character of the group and the way that they've bonded together and grown together, the steps that they've taken together. That's what he's getting out of all of the optimism for this. They brought in last summer, before last season, they brought in Linus Ullmark, Nick Jensen, David Perron, Michael Amadio, Noah Gregor, and Adam Gaudette. At the deadline, he added Fabian Zetterlund and Dylan Cousins. For the entirety of last season, you had a team that played very fast, very entertaining hockey. He obviously feels that they're ready to take the next step when it comes to this sort of thing. So this is why he's decided to run it back. And they've certainly, inspired him to that level of confidence through their play and through making the playoffs and taking the Leafs to 6. Nobody expected that. So good to hear that he's going to be giving this young, fun group another shot.
Absolutely. Good for them. Let's talk about the Jets prospect and then the Leafs target.
Yeah, Jack Roslovic was one of those guys where there's it was curious as to why they drafted him in the first place. But what stands out about Roslovic is his speed. There were a lot of times when he actually showed how quick he was with the Jets last season. Now, he played sparingly in 31 regular season games and 10 postseason games, but one end-to-end rush against the Edmonton Oilers left a lot of the fan base drooling over this guy. Now, don't mistake his breakneck speed for a purely north-south game, though. He is actually very elusive when it comes to that. He did say, I can't replace what Paul Stastny did, but he can't replace what I do. Those are the players that were sent back and forth for each other, along with Patrick Laine. So, as one of those cast-off pieces in the Laine deal, it's one of those situations now where it's like, well, there's this other guy that's just as valid of a corner piece for them as anybody else.
Talk to me about the Flames.
So Rasmus Andersson has been having a little bit of trouble, mainly because there was a lot of apparently fake information and fake news going on out there. Anderson was apparently reportedly only willing to accept a trade to the Vegas Golden Knights. He's tried to put that to rest. There were other rumors that he might not sign at all and might go back to Sweden. He's also trying to put those to rest. He is an unrestricted free agent next summer, and it remains likely that he'll be moved before the trade deadline. But this is one of those situations where he's got to try to tamp down the Flames as much as he possibly can before it gets out of hand, because the last thing you need are rampant rumors going around.
Well, rampant rumors no longer exist for the Flames goaltending. A 7-year contract ensures that.
Yeah, there were a lot of questions as to whether or not Dustin Wolf would re-sign with the Flames. He's chosen to sign a $52.5 million 7-year deal. That's an average 7.5 AAV.
Good goaltender, but I don't know.
Well,
they went through this a few years ago. They did the same thing, and then they ended up trading the goaltender. Went to Vancouver.
And here's the thing, he's only 6 foot, 166 pounds. He's not as big as some of the other goalies out there.
Is he going to get taller? Is he going to get wider?
Probably wider. I mean, come on, 6 foot, 166. He's got to get bigger somewhere. I don't think it's vertical at this point.
Goaltenders aren't that thick; they're pretty thin. But regardless, they've gone through this before, where they've had their goaltender of the future, and they paid him, future money, and then they traded him. Oh no, then he went away as a free agent. No, they did. They traded him. They traded him to Vancouver, right? So anyway, so this is the thing about goaltenders. $7 million goaltenders are a little bit expensive, not because of the price you pay them, but the price you have to pay the guy that's going to back him up because you don't think he can play all year. So that's where the problem begins. It's the 7 plus what, 2, 3? I like what the Leafs are doing, and they have a goaltender that I don't think has shown less than him. It's been more of a big star experience for Wolf. Admittedly, he's done a great job leading the league in goaltending, and hopefully when his career keeps moving, hopefully he'll have a good year, because it's tough when they get that big money's a big call. It weighs on your shoulders, man.
Oh, for sure, it's a heavy weight to carry.
I said this about Marner, that his style of play, paying him that much money, was going to be a little difficult, especially a guy who emotionally was not really a guy that. Well, we saw what happened when he threw the puck over the boards. And I'm not mentioning it to harp on Marner, but to harp on a situation where these young guys, they're their own worst enemy sometimes because of the money they ask for. There's a price to be paid.
The weight of expectation based on salary is sometimes
on a 22-year-old, Aaron. Yep. Remember, he's 22. This is what we're talking about here. This is why paying guys too much too early is a chance to maybe make them have setbacks. But it worked for Marner in the long run. Look how many points he got. So it worked out well for him.
Yep.
Not in championships, but it worked in his personal stats. And Wolf will probably have really good personal stats. The big thing we want to see from him, and so do Calgary fans, they want to see that he's a difference maker, that he's the guy that gets him in the playoffs and then wins in the playoffs. That's what you're paying for when you're paying $7 million. That's where the pressure lies.
Speaking of salaries, the NHL has officially closed their long-term injury reserve investigation into the Edmonton Oilers, in particular with regards to Evander Kane and his mysteriously timed surgeries from the 2024-25 season. Back in June, Frank Saravalli had reported it was unclear what was motivating the extra time behind the investigation. But Kane missed the entire 24-25 regular season due to two surgeries, one for an abdominal and one for a groin issue in September and January to remove a knee growth. And he returned in Game 2 of the Oilers' first-round playoff series against the LA Kings. They wanted to see if Edmonton had violated the CBA by activating Kane in the postseason when the salary cap does not apply. So the Oilers provided all of the requested medical documentation. And the NHL and Bill Daly at this point have said, no, you know what? You guys are good. We're going to close off this investigation here. But there is the possibility if they do discover anything a little further down the line that they can revisit it.
Is that why you think they traded him?
It's entirely a possibility. There's other things that go into this, like the rumor that he's not necessarily the best or the easiest to deal with in the locker room.
Well, apparently he's having some issues already in Vancouver. I've heard.
Well, he's chirping his teammates. You know, they were doing an interview with him, and players kept missing the net and hitting the glass, and then he turned around and yelled at them to just hit the friggin' net. But most of that is good-natured chirping. I'm not sure how his teammates would take it. However, speaking of teammates, Jack Hughes was apparently interviewed in Las Vegas by TSN insider Pierre LeBrun. But if he dreamed one day of playing on the same team as his brother Quinn, because Jack and Luke Hughes are already with the New Jersey Devils. Quinn is the only outlier playing with Vancouver, Jack said, "Yeah, I'd love to play with my brother. Obviously, the question is, do they talk about it all day in Vancouver? Are we rumored to be going there, or is he going to be coming home? So that's one of those things where questions start, chins wag, and things get to be a little more fun during the silly season."
Absolutely. All right, let's talk now about. It's funny. Only the Oilers over these past few years have been questioned about their cap in the playoffs, and they happen to be the only team who caused questions to be raised that didn't win a Stanley Cup. They didn't win a Stanley Cup. It's the only time it's been questioned, and there have been cases that have been more egregious that haven't been investigated. And the reason they haven't been investigated, I'll leave people to figure it out on their own. If they don't investigate it, they're not throwing shade on the Stanley Cup champ, which is the worst thing that the NHL could do from their perspective. So they're picking on somebody that it won't hurt the National Hockey League picking on Edmonton.
No, that's not going to hurt them at all.
Pick on a team that won the cup. Oh boy, that's going to raise eyebrows. That's going to raise eyebrows. It's easy to do it with Edmonton. The question is how they deal with it. Let's talk about the Canucks. Oh yeah, Jack Hughes. Let's go to the Leafs. The Leafs are talking about they have a leadership group that's okay. I don't disagree with that. They've their best leader in my mind is Tavares when it comes to what makes you a professional. He's the best example of a professional hockey player.
Yeah. So as it currently stands, the Leafs don't look like they're going to be adding any additional captains at this point. I know that Marner had worn an A with sharing it with Morgan Riley. Riley got to wear the A at home games. Marner had the A for away games after Austin got the C and Tavares was downgraded last summer. Marner also divvied up home and away games with Matthews when he was an alternate captain. But now with Marner off with the Golden Knights, Berube says he's not adding another voice to that. You don't have to have an A on or anything like that to be a leader. The guys in the room know who the real leaders are. The A's and the C's are mostly ceremonial because those are the guys that are going to be talking about the stripes, right? So you want to give them to guys that don't necessarily have the reputation of being whiners and who are actually able to communicate. Hence, usually the assistant captain's going to older players. So as it currently stands, Matthews carries the captaincy, and Tavares and Riley will each wear an A. And they're perfectly happy with that situation as it is.
Noah Gregor moves on, signs with a Stanley Cup contender.
Yeah, he's just signed a PTO with the Florida Panthers. The source of that is Noah Gregor's uncle, Jason Gregor, of Edmonton Sports AM News 1440. He split last season between the Senators and the San Jose Sharks following a one-year stint with the Toronto Maple Leafs. His performance during the regular season, especially late in the regular season, led a lot of people to believe he'd be sticking around for a bit longer, but that wasn't the case. And as it stands now, he's got a PTO with the Panthers, so that could definitely be interesting. He's joining a team that is looking to be on the cusp of a three-peat. So we'll have to see where it goes from there. Absolutely.
Aaron, thanks for doing this.
Not a problem, Frank.
He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Sinishi. Thank you for watching. You can check us out on Candid Frank Sinishi on YouTube, 10:30. Have a great one, everybody. Good to see you. Enjoy the baseball.